You ever wonder what an AI is really thinking? I mean, we get the answers they give us, but what if we could actually eavesdrop on their internal monologue? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're peeking under the hood to see if we can teach an AI to think in a whole new way. Yeah, this is the big question, isn't it? When you feed an AI a prompt, what's actually happening inside that black box before you get a response? Is it just a storm of ones and zeros, or is there something more structured? Something that looks a lot like a thought process. So, check this out. Here's a pretty typical situation. A user asks a question in Spanish, right? But the AI's internal reasoning, its so-called chain of thought, it's all happening in English. It gets the Spanish just fine, but it thinks through the problem in English. It's like English is its hidden default language. And this is what researchers are starting to call a monolingual mind. Even with models that are supposed to be multilingual, their core reasoning often snaps right back to English. And that's a huge barrier if we really want to understand these things on a global scale.
So here's our challenge. Can we break that barrier? Is it possible to teach an AI to actually think in French or German or Spanish just as easily as it does in English right now?
And look, the reason this matters so much is all about transparency and accessibility. I mean, if you can see an AI's thought process in your own language, you can understand its logic, you can spot its mistakes, and you can build way more trustworthy systems for everybody everywhere. So, how do we pull this off? Well, the cool part is you don't have to build a whole new AI from the ground up. Instead, you can use a process called fine-tuning. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a recipe for teaching an old AI a very cool new trick. And the recipe is surprisingly simple. First, you grab a powerful base model. Then, you feed it some very special multilingual data. You apply a really clever technique called LoRA, and then you just hit train. Let's break down those ingredients.
Okay, for our base, we've got this heavy-hitting open source model. But the real star of the show is this multilingual thinking dataset. It's packed with examples of how to reason in different languages. And then the secret sauce that makes it all practical is a technique called LoRA. Now, this slide is the absolute key to the entire operation. Look at how the data is structured. It separates the analysis, that's the model's private inner monologue, from the final answer that the user sees. This lets us surgically target just the thinking part for training. It's brilliant. And this is where LoRA works its magic. See, instead of retraining all 20 billion parameters in the model, which would be insane, LoRA lets us go in and tweak just a tiny, tiny fraction of them. It's kind of like teaching a chess grandmaster a new opening without making them forget how all the pieces move. And the difference this makes is just staggering. We're talking about training millions of parameters in a few hours instead of billions over weeks or months. This is what takes AI customization out of the hands of just a few giant tech labs and makes it something almost anyone can try. All right, so we've followed the recipe, we've fine-tuned the model. What's the result? This is where we get to the wow moment. What can our newly trained AI do now?
Okay, let's go back to our original problem. The user still asks in Spanish. But now, look at the internal reasoning. It's in German. We've successfully hijacked the AI's language of thought, completely separating it from the input and output. That's amazing. This is that incredible new flexibility we were talking about. You can ask a question in one language like Spanish and tell the model to do all its internal work, all its thinking in a completely different one, like German. This mix and match power is a massive leap forward for actually understanding what's going on inside these black boxes. So, you might be thinking, okay, that's a pretty cool party trick, but why does this actually matter? Well, it has some really profound implications for how we build, trust, and even interact with AI. Well, just imagine you're a developer in Germany. Being able to inspect a model's logic in German is a total game changer. You can finally understand how it got to an answer, and that's how you build trust. It empowers developers everywhere, especially those working with languages that are often overlooked, and that helps create a much more inclusive global AI community. And you want to hear the most mind-blowing part?
To teach this massive 20 billion parameter model this completely new skill, it only took about 1,000 examples. That's it. It just proves you don't always need massive amounts of data. You just need the right data. So this all leads to one final fascinating thought. We've just seen that we can teach an AI to literally think in pretty much any language we want. So it really makes you wonder, what's the next big barrier we need to break to make AI a true partner in how we communicate and understand the world?